Okay, a coach is a passionate and dedicated person who unlocks hidden potential by developing and believing in you all. I'm a consultant, I'm an educator, I'm a teacher, but more than anything, I'm a coach.
Rise above where the limits end. Speak up.
I'm here to champion your success. I'm here to make a difference in your life.
The metric is set.
Episode 4 today, here to talk about, first of all, I have to get rid of a bias. I was about to say inside the committee room. Now, I am completely, just my bias, I am completely put off by advertisements that take you inside the tent and sharing secrets of admission, yada yada. To me, it's not what we are about as admission professionals in my old job. So just a little bias there. That said, I'm going to take you inside the admission committee, but I'm not doing it as a ploy to get you to buy something. I'm trying to help you. And again, this is a classic case where this is one perspective. Over 23 years, I've been in this space for 30 plus years. 23 were spent at Choate Rosemary Hall, the boarding school. And interestingly, well, let me jump right in. Interestingly, I don't think I made up the term, but I use the term omnimity, which is to say that a lot of schools have subcommittees, the 9th grade committee, the boarding or day committee, the girls, the boys, whatever it might be. I was really passionate about learning and passionate about everybody on my team understanding the social dynamics, the psychological dynamics of the committee room. So I called it the omnimity. And that means everybody was in there for a great portion of this, or at least I was in there 24/7. So I did actually get the benefit of 23 years. I don't want to count the M&Ms or the licorice that went around the table. Not a lot of health food in these situations. But the first thing I want to say is, human bias, as much as we do anti-bias training, plays a role in all of this. So admission directors try their best to create a committee that has the ability to walk in the shoes of almost every applicant that comes their way, which is sort of impossible, but it always was a goal of mine. I used to joke when someone like me was applying for a job at Choate, and I said, we got me covered. We don't need another me. I can represent a broad range of me, my kind of experiences. We need a different perspective. We need a different life story, so to speak. So we did our best. In fact, at one point, a point of pride for my time at Choate, we had on the committee 5 decades. So we had someone from the class of in the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, or maybe it was 60s, 70s, whatever the case. So 50 years of understanding culture, the family, if it was a legacy, student applying, etc. So schools try really hard to create diverse committees. Now, so they understand your child and you, if you're a student listening to this. That's challenging sometimes because time is limited. And as I prepared to talk about this topic for this episode, one thing I surely wanted to mention was the fact that a lot of situations with admission are time pressured. And time pressure changes the dynamic in so many ways. The pressure to make a decision. Let's not even go into Friday morning, Friday night, Monday morning, the time of day that a decision is made. These are human beings. These are people on the committees. So some of them have young children, babies who don't sleep. Some are coaches. They're up late. They're doing different things. They're traveling. So when you gather people into the committee room, you're looking for, obviously, fresh brains. You're looking for unbiased opinions. You're looking for fair chances. But here's where the first helping you understand this situation comes in. You're serving the school, right? The school is there to be excellent, to be an impressive place, to carry on its legacy. The school is there to serve students, of course. So it's a two-way street. But, one of the things that I often spend a lot of time explaining to parents on the phone after a decision came out as a deny or as a wait list is that institutional needs often drive decisions. And so if the school happened to have an athletic position of girls soccer goalie covered by a returning student or another new student, there was not a high demand for the applicant who brought that skill or ability to the table. So institutional needs often drive decisions in a particular way. That's something families don't always understand. So a lot of admission people give the advice to candidates, and I agree 100%. However, it's almost impossible. They say, when we render our decision, don't take it personally. Yeah, okay. It's like getting broken up with by your girlfriend or boyfriend or friend, and don't take it personally. It was me, not you, right? It just doesn't happen. But sometimes it's absolutely 100% the case, right? So as an applicant, you can't exactly understand institutional needs, but as you engage with the theater director, as you engage with the music director, as you engage with the lacrosse coach, you can understand pretty quickly. They're very transparent and honest about their needs for the coming cycle. Sometimes they're vague, sometimes they're broad, but they're going to help you as much as they possibly can. No one wants to deny someone, especially a top candidate who should get in, but institutional needs direct that differently. Okay, so that's one thing to really understand. Try like heck not to take it personally. You're trying to learn from this experience of applying to a school. Typically what happens, and again, there's no such thing as typical, but to give you some broad strokes here, a file which you put your heart and soul into for a year, or at least several months, or at least weeks if you were a last minute candidate, you put a lot of time into it, let's put it that way. That file is read, I hope, a minimum of 2 times, if not a minimum of 3 times, sometimes more. Some schools have faculty committees. They put a lot of eyes on it. Of course, the more eyes that go on it, the more complicated it can become. So, but a minimum of 2 reads. I don't know many places that filter out a candidate unless they're completely not qualified. It still gets another quality check. If it's a really poor application with not qualified grades, it's going to get another check before it gets put into the deny pile. With those 2 or 3 or plus reads, it's then going to get some kind of a status. Everybody has a different rating system, a way to evaluate. But safe to say the traditional measures of character, the kind of person you are, the level of rigor of your academic program, your performance in that academic program, if it's a test required school, the ballpark of your testing, your extracurriculars, your story, right? Probably the most important thing is your story and how it ties all those things together. So the candidate gets a couple of reads plus 2, 3, 4, 5, maybe more. Who knows? Some schools are super powerful when it comes to this process. It's then going to land in what I would call the omnimity, what some schools would call a committee, which can exist of usually an odd number to if there's votes at that stage, but they're all trying to funnel this case based on their experience, years past. Every cycle's different, so you don't ever really know what that cycle is going to look like until you're in it, to push that case to the full committee, or to what they would call the full committee. Applications are typically due January 15th, at least for boarding schools that I work with, some February 1, some into January. So from the moment your application is submitted, and that could be a whole different podcast. I want to get my application in early. Whew, interesting. Well, when you get it in early, readers are pretty gung-ho on January 16th. They're got their coffee and their mug and they're ready to roll. And they might give you a more thorough read than you asked for. That might be more critical. They also might be more fresh, more open, unbiased, not grumpy and tired. So everybody has a different opinion about that, but certainly you try to get your application in on time. There's a reading period for, say, 2, 3, 4 weeks, depends on the volume of the school and the candidacy. And then at some point, typically schools will start committee. Those committees will be led by someone who's charged with bringing the slate of candidates to the table in some form or fashion, with all of the pre-evaluation work done, vetted grades, recaps of the candidates' application, so that the committee, who has not read the case, unless it's a small committee where it's a committee of 3, let's say, maybe they've all read it. Now they're just coming together to discuss it. But in other situations, there's going to be a core of readers. The case is brought to the board. Technology, I mean, I'm a little bit out of the circle now, so gosh knows what AI has done for candidacies, but some kind of presentation is done. In some cases, it's projected on the wall. In other cases, it's on the laptop or the tablet, or it's in some kind of a form where everybody's looking at the same thing. Yeah, I won't digress into the ability for a committee to focus, because I'm glad I got out of admission directing a little while ago, because obviously all the communications that are available to distract a reader during reading a file and a committee during the committee itself. A big debate years ago was, can you receive messages during deliberations, urgent messages from whatever post? Is it an ongoing active, atmosphere? That's up to each school, each director, each office will dictate rules for that. But essentially, the case is presented. And again, that's a little bit different in each scenario, but that's when you hope that you did your job. As a consultant and advisor, that's when I hope I did my job, helping the student be their authentic self, getting all the value points across of how you can make that community better, what you stand for, what you'd fight for, what you do, how you do it, how you'd fit in. All those points should be made by then. In fact, when I onboard a family as a client of mine, I always say, you probably shouldn't promise anything, but I commit to three things. One, I'm going to be honest with you. I'm going to tell you if you have broccoli in your teeth. I'm going to tell you if the way you speak does not work. I'm going to tell you all these things that most people in life will not tell you. I will tell you because I care for you. I want you to present best, and I want to help you fix those things yourself before you get there. I commit to you being fully considered by the committee. Now, that's a given, you would think, but busy places, busy people, focus can be lost. You want to make sure you're fully considered. And so a sending school, a consultant, an NPO, a CBO, a lot of candidates have people helping them, advocating for them, representing them, or at least supporting them in some way. At least everybody has a parent or a guardian that's doing that in that way. So they're helping them put their best foot forward once they get there. The third is the biggest thing that I sort of talk about, and it's being understood. So you can be considered, but you want to be understood, not misunderstood. And I can confess, now that I've left the admission office, that there were times when we would misunderstand a candidate, whether it's the interview, the essays, the recommendations, maybe all three. And that was always a shame, because sometimes we'd have a follow-up from either a sending school or some kind of a coach or a music director, and we'd clarify some information we had been misjudging that candidate on. So I always say, I say it to my own kids, if you're fully considered and fully understood and you don't make it, move on. Time to grow, improve, get better, and get there. Now, committees typically have rounds, first round, second round, third round, final round, funding round, right? So a lot of schools will do their whole process and then near the end, introduce whether the candidate is applying for financial aid. If they're applying for financial aid, most schools, not all, most schools have to consider that because they cannot fund everyone they want to enroll at the school. So the financial aid committee and director go off and do their thing. They come back and attach a number to your file, typically. And this is critical. This could be, in fact, its own separate podcast, because some families think, oh, let me not game the system or fix the system, but let me show that I'm so poor that I need more money. Well, if you successfully do that, you're going to be giving a more difficult chance for your child to be admitted, because it may be obvious to say, but the bigger grant you're vying for, typically the more competition there is. Schools are trying to disperse financial aid funds across a wide spectrum, not just full need kids, but upper middle class, middle class. They're trying to stratify those financial aid grants across the spectrum. So at some point, there's going to be a round where financial aid is put in. And at that point, if the school does not have enough funds, or they believe they may have taken you, if they had the funds, they'll either waitlist or deny you. They usually explain that in the letter or explain it in their policy on their website, so you understand what happened in that equation. So naturally, families want to put their best financial foot forward to say, without totally apocalyptizing their lives financially, they want to be able to offer as much as they possibly can, giving their child the best chance. For the need blind schools, they'll do their own evaluation. They'll care a little less about what that number is because they're need blind. They don't have to care, and that's wonderful for them. Of course, those schools are usually the most selective schools on the planet, so it kind of goes both ways. In the committee room is where human beings exist. And human beings are complicated, as I said to someone this morning on one of my calls. They're trained, they're highly professional, they've had their anti-bias training. Some have lots of experience. Others are rookies. They're there for the first time. They went to school. They understand the age group, the demographic. They're closer to the action of that student, but they have little experience going through the selection process. Usually there's a balance of those people in the committee. The committees are carefully chosen to make up that piece. When your case is presented, again, is when you want to be sure that you have done your job and presented yourself as, well, here we go. So this will be interesting. Let me try this tact. And sometimes I sound awful businessy about this stuff, and I don't mean to, but this is where I'm honest with you is, and sometimes this is a tough question, if not obnoxious question to ask a student when I have a student. I said, but I'll say to them very frankly, okay, now that you know me and trust me and like me, let's have a really honest conversation. And one thing I'll say is, tell me what problem you solved for the school. I'm pausing purposely because sometimes there's dead silence. I said, what problem do you solve for the school? The admission officer wants to take you as a candidate and bring you to committee and say, Lizzie solves our problem for a joyous, enthusiastic softball player with lots of leadership potential. Now, maybe that is identified as an institutional need. Our softball team is struggling and want to get some more powerful players. We're looking for leadership in this class. We're looking for, this girl fits our profile of a down-to-earth, funny, honest kid. Let's give her a shot. That would be the admission officer presenting Lizzie's case, giving it legs, and the committee would then discuss the case and decide in that initial stage, does it move forward? If yes, wait till the next committee and see what happens to poor Lizzie. If the candidate is decided at that point that they don't solve a problem or meet an institutional need, or be what I would call an at-large candidate, which is to say, there's still plenty of room for nice kids who have potential, who do positive things. But this again, we'll come back to the school. So this is great. This is a perfect place. I'm not going to go on and on with this. We got to get to the wait list, our mailbag of questions for today's episode. But this is where you're selecting the right school for you, the right list of schools to apply to matters. Because if you are that candidate I was just about to allude to, where you're a good kid, you've got good grades, you've got all kinds of potential, but you maybe not have built out this amazing resume yet, there's going to be schools very interested in you. But if you're looking at the most selective top schools, they're really hunting for talent. They're hunting for musical, artistic, athletic, leadership, proven talent in those areas. And those, you may advance a few rounds in the committee because you're a great kid and you have potential and all these things. But at the end of the day, you might not make that final hurdle because they're just other kids who do all that and they do something special that solves. And when I say solve a problem for the school needs to, if it's a top school, it needs to maintain musical excellence, theatrical excellence, athletic excellence. So they've got to, there's a lot of pressure on the admission office to deliver those candidates to the school. Otherwise, you've got maybe a whole lot of potential in these new batch of students, but you have no proven talent and skill. And that's going to be a risk for the school to open up without that talent baked in. So a good consultant advisor like myself will help you create a list of schools where, of course, you're going to reach for some places that you could be selected, but you're going to have places where you're going to be a good fit, doesn't guarantee admission, and you're going to have places where you'd be very appealing to the school, where you're likely to be admitted candidate. And again, each of those buckets has a whole different script and conversation that goes along with that between the consultant, the advisor, the sending school, and you, the family, to decide big fish, small pond. You know, what kind of person how do you respond to pressure? How do you respond to stronger candidates in the school that you've got to, outdo essentially in that regard? A very complicated conversation I'll save for later. I think I'm going to stop there. This is really, this part of this podcast, this work for me is more driven by your questions. So I'm going to invite you to send an email to the email address on the screen and hit me with anything. I mean, I will obviously be professional in my answers, but there's stories to tell. There's amazing stories to tell. One fun fact, and I'll just share this because confidentiality is a huge thing for admission professionals, and I find them to be fantastic in this domain. But I happen to have spent 23 years at Choate Rosemary Hall. I'm proud to say I have well over 1,000 social media friends who are graduates, and I won't I won't confess to them necessarily, but when I see their name, in a lot of cases, I can actually remember the committee discussion about them, and that terrifies them. And of course, they want to know more about it. But I have fond memories, and some of you, if you're listening, you took an interesting path to the admission finish line. Let's put it that way. I'll leave it at that. And that's the joy of selective admission. All right, so we have questions that have been submitted. I'm going to get help from my producer, Lizzie. Episode 4, this is the dramatic moment when we switch to taking your questions. And I have to say, I just did that whole episode. I'm not sure I said AQ a whole lot. So let me remind you that AQ is articulation quotient. AQ is someone using their strengths to influence a community, another person, an entity, etc. So I'm going to try to use a couple of my strengths, which are creativity and humor, to tell you that we have developed a segment for the podcast where we take questions and we're calling it the wait list, which we think is creative and a little bit funny. So my producer and I, Lizzie and I, have created this segment. There's an email you can write to, and the email is, it should appear on the screen, but I'll also read it, rd3aqmatters@gmail.com, because after all, this is a podcast. Some of you are listening and not watching on YouTube. So AQ does matter. And this podcast is not just about admission and selection and being an impressive candidate. It's how to use AQ in your life to be an effective, influential, positive human being. And so please bring on the questions relative to anything under that heading. We'll try to answer a few at the end of each episode that we'll call the wait list, because of course you're waiting till the end of the episode and there's a list of questions. So, for future episodes, if you can't stand listening to me, just fast forward and you'll get to the wait list and find out what people are asking me these days. So without further ado, let's invite Lizzie on, who's been waiting patiently in the green room.
The wait list.
And she will read the first question. We'll take 3 or 4 maybe today, see how long that takes, and wrap it up from there. And Lizzie, you're on.
All right. Well, thank you guys all for listening to this podcast. For me, obviously, it's something very special to me. But let's dig into your questions, because I think these are questions that a lot of people have had. And as Ray Diffley just mentioned, anytime you want to email us and you want to get his answers, just please email and we will get you on the show. Email 1, the small talk back. Hi, Ray. My daughter is applying to private school, and we've got a lot of time for prepping for interviews. We perfected the contact, handshakes, answering questions about her interests, and how to talk about her accomplishments. But I recently started wondering if we were actually teaching the wrong thing. Many students seem incredibly polished to formal interviews, yet struggle with the unattached moments before and after. The walk during campus, the conversations while waiting for the interview to begin, or chatting with the admissions officer over lunch. As we prepare our kids for this interview, are we preparing them for something wrong?
Yeah, that's a great question, caller or writer of email questions. This is fantastic. I don't know if I need to repeat some of the question, but it's about preparation. I'll start by saying one of the biggest turnoffs, I think universally shared by admission people, are candidates who are scripted. Those who memorized answers, prepared for questions, and God help them, they're kids, they're teenagers. So they've done the work. Personally, I can, most admission people would recognize that right away. I don't feel as strongly about, giving them points off for that. But as soon as I detect that, I'm going to go into what I call off-road mode. So I'm going to stop asking standard interview questions because I know they're prepared for 20 of them and they'll have the content ready to go. I need to ask them something I'm 100% sure they've never been asked before. And so this is why AQ matters, because AQ teaches you how to handle any question. There's some formula to AQ, but the creativity and the flexibility within that framework gives you the ability to be authentic to yourself. So first of all, I feel for kids preparing for interviews. They're, it's not taught in school. The best they're going to get in school is public speaking, and that's great. They're going to get maybe some model UN or some ability at a podium to share some messages, but they're not trained in how to have a conversation in real life, which is why when I proposed the idea AQ to the publishers, Brian Tracy Publishing Company, they actually produced the book as a business book for adults. I said, it's for kids to learn how to do well in interviews and learn how to express themselves, interact with people. And they said, yes, totally, 100%. We understand. However, every adult walking this planet needs this formula and needs this term because it's more comprehensive than a public speaking or a stepping up to the podium. So to this parent, I would say, you have to have a strategy to develop your child's communication. It's why I wrote the book. It's why it's simple 5 steps. You take those steps and you put them into practice every day. I got off a call this morning with one of my new students and I record most of my calls. I share the calls recording with parents and the student I just met with, and I invite them into my team, basically. And I say, listen, you know the principles. Here's what it looks like, what it sounds like. You got to hold your child accountable for learning this. Now it's lighthearted. It's fun. It takes time. You can't just have a couple of prep sessions and be ready to go for an interview. So it's more comprehensive than that. I mean, I just, again, had a call this morning and I have a lot of corny jokes. It's part of who I am. It's my sense of humor may fly or may not. But I tell my students, there's one town you do not want to live in. Okay, that town, well, there's probably a lot you don't want to live in, but there's one town in my world you don't want to live in, and that town is Genericsville. Okay, you do not want to live in Genericsville. So when I ask someone about an experience they had, or how was your weekend, or what have you been up to, and they say, it was great, it was fun, it was interesting, it was awesome, it means nothing to me, absolutely nothing. I want details. I want to learn something about what you experienced. I want your opinion about it. Right? A lot of kids, and I think I've said this before, they list things they did for the weekend. You can list those things, but I want what you did and your opinion about it. And that's how I learn about you. Now, a lot of kids have not thought about these things. And so there's absolutely no shortcuts in this work. If you are someone who's curious, and that's a great strength to have for applying to schools, your curiosity, you have to be the expert in curiosity. Or let me rephrase that. You have to have expertise in curiosity. Okay, you don't have to be the expert at 13 years old or 14 years old, but you need to know who were people in our society who've had an impact, who were curious. You need to know how curiosity brings a classroom together. You need to know when to use your curiosity and when not to, right? Some kids are pretty obnoxious with their curiosity, and we want to cut that off when we can. So again, this is why I'm so passionate about this. I mean, I have a vision for thousands, hundreds of thousands of kids in classrooms, ballrooms, stadiums across, sort of the Tony Robbins of teenagers. And this is why I do my student development retreat. You've got to have dedicated time for me to sit with Lizzie and say, let's talk about you. Who are you? Once you try to identify those characteristics, then we dig into them. And over a period of time, you decide, yeah, you kind of put the step, yes. And, I just said this in a social media post the other day. One of my former colleagues had this great phrase. Maybe you've heard it. Maybe everyone's heard it. It's, have you met me? Right? It's like, if I do something that Ray does, that's goofy or fun or creative, it should be no surprise that that's what I do. someone's like, I can't believe, I said, have you met me? Like, this is what I do. This is how I roll. This is how I function. So if you, I'm like, you're a perfect person, Lizzie. I know you well enough to know, I'm like, don't be surprised by Lizzie doing X, Y, or Z. Have you met her? That's who she is, right? So kids at that age, they don't have the ability often to be able to say, have you met me? This is what I do. This is how I roll, because they have not put in the time. And it's not an insult. It's the reality of our school system. It's the reality of, I left the admission office at Choate in my prime, so to speak, whatever that means. Meaning I got there at 23. I left at 46 as a sitting director of admission. Most consultants have their admission career and then retire to this work. So why am I telling you this story? I have time. At 46 years old, when I started this chapter of my life, I had the time that I'm talking about. Kids need to think about who I am, what I want to do. And over a short period of time, I found the niche that's missing in our society educationally. And this is it.
Let's get on to question 2. Hi, Ray. I'm a college junior, and almost everyone I know uses AI. People use it to write emails, brainstorm ideas, edit papers, prepare for interviews, and even practice difficult conversations. Part of me thinks this is an amazing technology. Another part of me worries that if a machine is doing more and more of our communicating for us, we're going to lose the ability to think on our feet, tell our own stories, articulate our ideas in real time. You spent years teaching the importance of articulate quotient, AQ. In a world where artificial intelligence can write almost anything for us, does AQ become less important or more important than ever? Thank you.
Yeah, good question. And gosh, I'll have to ask AI for the answer to that question. Get a second opinion. AQ, its almost sole purpose is to elevate our experiences in life. We spend our time, I love this concept. You either invest your time or you spend your time, meaning you lose your time on things that are not worthy. And sometimes people do that online forever, and it's a waste of their time. They all admit to that pretty readily. So I would say at the end of the day, the school experience is a social experience, in my opinion. And who you spend your time with greatly affects the outcomes in your experiences, which you add them together and it becomes your life. So if you can be with someone who lifts you up, who uses their strengths to make you better, and it comes naturally to them because they worked on it and developed their AQ, that's just a win. It's just a win. And so from an admissions standpoint, a corporate culture standpoint, a family standpoint, a team standpoint, just makes life more interesting, makes it more educational, makes it often more fun. So I do these character strength profiles, which I've been pitching to schools only lightly though, so I'm not surprised they're just busy doing their thing. But schools should be, and this is, I hope this turns into a clip that finds its way to the internet. Schools should be assembling classes for sure, dorms absolutely sure, by human characteristics. And these schools should be laboratories to find out what characteristics gel with each other. And they should be measuring AQ so that each entity, each class, each dorm, each teams are different because it's skill and ability athletically, but still you want interesting kids in your team for the bus rides to Hotchkiss, right? So this is a hugely missed opportunity. Hugely, that's a great word. This is a missed opportunity in a major way. And again, AQ is a universal term. I'm using in the context of school admission and human development because that's what I do. But even the publishers of my book saw it as a bigger concept where I hope to be on the Shark Tank sometime soon, selling the idea, getting the vernacular in the ether, and having people all understand, develop your child's AQ, develop your school's culture of AQ. All these pieces are going to matter way more with AI on the scene.
Email number 3. This is from a
Perfect.
parent. Hi, Ray. My husband and I have a daughter entering middle school, and like many parents, we want to give her every opportunity we can. Challenge is we don't come from the kind of background that seems to be common in these environments. We didn't go to elite schools ourselves, we don't have impressive professional networks, and sometimes it feels like though other families know all of the unwritten rules, we are only discovering them as we go. I heard about your AQ and the importance of communication and confidence. How can parents improve their own AQ, and how can we better advocate for our child? Support them through the interviews and applications, and avoid unintentionally holding them back. Can AQ be learned as an adult? And if so, where should parents start?
Yeah, great question. 100% can be learned as a parent. In fact, the book is written to adults. It's written about, it's written for business leaders. But in my work, I typically record my calls, and I've had some, sort of, this is life humor, but at least a couple of parents, if not more, have said, we listen to those calls closer than our daughter does because we're learning about AQ. And I said, that's not surprising to me. I interact with wonderful adults every day who don't know how to land the plane, who don't know how to engage, who don't know to give the answer and details. So I'm interested, who can't read my body language or my facial expression that I could care less, said with love in my heart. So yeah, I think parents need to know what their child is learning, especially relative to AQ. And AQ is improved around the house. A lot of kids will answer questions to typical interview questions without much expertise or content, as I call it. I say to my students, Lizzie, we're going to build the Lizzie library, and we're going to fill you so full of content that when someone asks you a question, you're just looking at the section that starts with the letter S to pull out the content that you can deliver to answer that question. But honestly, a lot of kids have not done the work to develop the content, and therefore they're full of ahs, ums, likes, knows, and they live in Genericsville. And it's not impressive. Now, if they're the number one lefty pitcher throwing 105 miles an hour, we'll give them another chance. If they're the number one bassoonist and they really are a good kid and the orchestra's in need, we'll give them another chance. But if you're competing for an application for a spot in the at-large pool and you're not able to express yourself, showing confidence and content, it's pretty easy to push you aside. Yeah. So parents, go along this journey with your child in learning AQ. One thing I will say, and it's not a shameless plug, it's just a plug. I wrote the book on AQ. I was so proud to have one of my idols of public speaking or communication, Brian Tracy, pick up the idea, contribute to the book in the foreword or at the beginning, and put it out there. But I can give lessons to kids all day long on Zoom or whatever channel, but there's still value in print. So looking at a book, circling it, going back to it, reading the examples I give in the book, super helpful. And again, the parents can read the book. It's 98 pages. You can read it over a cup of coffee and a bacon, egg, and cheese sandwich, or avocado toast if you're healthier. So again, I'm being a wise guy, but my creativity and humor is who I am. So have you met me, right? Same idea. Yeah, so you can get the book on Amazon, and it's in Kindle form, it's in paperback or hardback. And again, should be on, I hope it's on every shelf. Parents and child alike. Simple, it's a quick read, and read it and pass it on. Help AQ spread. This is really important. Now, I'm going to add something that may be a statement of the obvious, and it's a little more. I say to the boys I work with, especially because, as you know, Lizzie, boys are a little bit behind the girls at that age, certainly. So, one thing in life, if you can get out in front, if you can get ahead, you're going to win a lot. And so if you can develop your AQ as a 12, 13, 14, 15, 16-year-old boy, it's so easy to distinguish yourself because every other boy that age, and a lot of girls, are speaking or living in Genericsville?
Let's get to email 4. My son is in high school, and like many parents, I'm trying to help him prepare for the future. Problem is that the future feels very different from the one I prepared for. AQ is changing how people write, research, communicate, and even apply for jobs. AI is also doing the same. Some of the careers my son might be pursue probably don't even exist yet and might disappear completely if it's the other way. If you were advising a teenager entering the workforce in 2035 or 2040, what abilities would you tell them to develop today? And are schools currently teaching the skills that would make the most of the future?
Yeah, what abilities would I teach them to learn? This is a no-brainer. I would teach them to maximize the abilities they were given at birth, or if you believe in God, by God, or that have been created in your nurturing environment you grew up in. You cannot lose when you develop yourself. In fact, you might just be in the wrong environment. You might, and this is an interesting thing, right? You're born somewhere, but where were you meant to be? You know, you're put in one environment. Is that where you're meant to be? And that's what the beauty of the world now and technology, you can move around. But, you know, this is a great question to end on, to be honest, Lizzie, because as I say to my students that I work with, I've lost the pen to sign the letter, "You're in" to Choate, signature Ray Diffley. I can't do that. It's up to the committee. It's up to the dynamics of that applicant pool. It's up to the institutional needs. It's up to your performance in this, that, or the other thing. What I can control, and this is age-old advice, control what you can control, adapt to what you can't. I can control the development of you. And that's huge. And so you may, in fact, you know, you got to get some losses to appreciate your wins. And the more losses you have, the stronger you become. So if you're developing yourself, you're getting better and better, learning as you go through, you can't lose in the end. You really can't. So you might be fishing in the wrong pond, and that's sometimes happens in life. And that's why mentors, advisors, consultants, whatever you want to call us, parents, aunts and uncles, old boarding school friends that you roomed with in 9th grade, you know, all these people know you. They may not know the current version of you, but they may have opinions about where you belong and how you can have an impact. What I am going to do for you is build you so you have the confidence to go and make a difference. And if someone doesn't see that value in you, you can edit this out, but screw them. I'll do a little promo for a retreat I'm having August 3rd and 4th this summer at the Saybrook Point Inn and Marina. Not a tough place to be for 2 days, but I will do an intensive AQ training, intensive speak up training, and so much more that will prepare kids for applications and interviews, and just to be a great conversationalist in life and to use their strengths to make the world a better place. So thanks for listening. See you next time.